Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's begin today's session of comprehensive news analysis with the first article that we have that focuses on India's food processing industry and the government's recent decision to include this sector in the production linked incentive scheme. We'll be talking about what exactly do we mean by production linked incentive scheme, what is it all about, and how is it that the government is trying to improve the performance of the food processing sector in the country. The author here says that India very recently formulated a unique PLI scheme to incentivize incremental sales in this sector. Now, as the name suggests, this kind of a scheme says that if you produce above a certain number or above a certain quantity, you will be given certain incentives by the government of India. In other words, you will be incentivized by the government if you increase your production, you increase your sales. So the government is trying to give a push to manufacturing by the use of these kind of schemes. For the food processing industry specifically, the government has earmarked about 10,900 crore rupees and 60 applicants or 60 different players in this industry have already been selected under this scheme. It will incentivize the firms for bringing in more scales and for branding and marketing their initiatives across the globe. Mainly, the focus of the government here is to give a push and encourage the Indian industries to have their branding abroad also. So they will be given incentives if they increase their sales in the foreign land, if they increase their branding and marketing outside the country as well. Now, this will help the government in two ways. Number one, when a particular industry increases its production or sales, that also means that the number of jobs in that industry is increasing. Secondly, when you're selling your produce outside India, that means you are in turn becoming a foreign exchange earner for the government. So government would always encourage industries who are selling their stuff outside India mainly as compared to within the nation. The author has estimated that the food processing sector might see an investment of about 6,500 crore rupees in the next 2 years. There have been multiple studies conducted in the past, including the one in the US, that says that if there is a 1% increase in public infrastructure, then it results in an increased output of 0.06% in the food manufacturing. So the more money that you invest in public infrastructure, the more in the long term would be your outcome when it comes to food manufacturing in the country. And thus the government is taking steps in the correct direction as per the author here. Now, most of this investment in the food processing sector mainly is focused in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh. Incidentally, these are also the states that have got a pretty good rank in the Good Governance Index of 2020-21, especially in the public infrastructure and utilities sector. It means the connection that we were talking about on the last slide, that is, increase in public infrastructure would result in increased food production outcome. This is seen in these rankings also. The states that have better public infrastructure are the ones where the food processing industry is flourishing more as compared to the others. The food processing sector is not the only sector where the government has announced a production linked incentive scheme. In fact, in the past couple of years itself, the government has announced this kind of a scheme in 13 sectors, including the food processing industry. The other sectors where the government has announced a similar production linked incentive scheme includes the production of medical devices, steel industry, textiles, drones, etc. There are a total of 13 such schemes announced by the government. Now, if you look at the food processing industry, we are going through a very interesting phase right now. Due to extended lockdowns within the country, more and more number of people are working from home right now, meaning that there is an increased demand for those products which are ready to eat. And thus, in the quarter of March to June 2020, there was a 170% rise in the sales volume of such ready-to-eat products. Means people are searching for more of these kind of products, mainly the ones which come with their own health benefits. Thus, the MSMEs in the food processing industry have a great chance right now to increase their business. However, the problem is that for the MSME sector especially, there is a problem to get credit. They don't get loans from the bank easily despite various schemes that are run by the government. One of the alternatives to asking for loan from the bank is P2P, that is peer-to-peer lending. For example, if you run a company, you require money. Rather than going to the bank, you go to such individual or multiple individuals who have extra money and who will be able to lend to you. That is called peer-to-peer lending rather than the bank coming in between. This experiment was successful in UK also. The UK government owns the British Business Bank, which is similar to India's Mudra Bank, that mainly gives loans to small businesses. This UK bank has in fact so far given loan to over 1,18,000 businesses worth over $17.88 billion. Now, India does have a system to ensure that there is capital that is given to the MSME. That system is called the Trade Receivable Discounting System, that is TREDS. Now, let me try and explain to you how TREDS system works and what is the problem that MSME are facing. Let's take a very simple example. Let's assume that I make certain types of shoes. There was a company that gave me order for making 1,000 pair of shoes. I delivered the shoes to the company. The company should pay me money in return, right? But the company right now says that we will give you money after 2 months. We will only give you money after these shoes sell from the shelf, and only then we will give you the money. So now the problem is that my money is stuck for 2 months. Now in these 2 months, I will not be able to do any more business because all my capital is locked up here. Now what can I do? I can either go to the bank and ask them for a loan, but that is a very difficult process. So now comes this kind of a system. What happens here is, when I gave 1,000 shoes to the company, the bill for this company was, let's assume, 1 lakh rupees. So the company has to pay me 1 lakh rupees, but they are saying they will only give me after 2 months. Now I have to look for a financier. This financier can be a bank, can be an individual, can be whoever. This financier will tell me, give this bill to me. I will take the money from the company directly after 2 months. In return of this, right now I am giving to you 90,000 rupees. Sell this bill to me or sell this invoice to me at a discounted price. Sell this to me for 90,000. I will then go to this particular company. I will wait for 2 months and then I will get back 1 lakh rupees. If you accept it, then it is fine. You can get the money and you can carry on your business. The financer also makes a profit out of it. All these transactions between the buyer, the seller and the financier happens on one single platform, which is called a Trade Receivable Discounting System, under which the MSMEs can exchange their bills for which they have not taken the money, give it to the financier at a discount so that they can get some money. In the long run, they will be able to have access to more money. Now, the problem with this kind of a system that we have is that it is not integrated with the GST portal. That is why there are certain tax complications that happen here, and that is also a suggestion that we should work towards if we have to improve the working of the MSME sector. The author here concludes by saying that having a robust and efficient food chain is in the interest of every nation across the world, especially at a time when hunger is still a problem, especially at a time when people across the world are searching for healthier food options. And that is why we must ensure that there are robust mechanisms built to help the MSME that are working in this aspect and are trying and experimenting to replace our staple rice and wheat with nutrition, plant-based proteins, etc. Now, as I told you earlier, in the food sector, the government has introduced a production-linked incentive scheme. This is one of the 13 sectors that have been covered under this scheme. Let's focus a bit on the food processing sector only and how this scheme would work. This scheme is implemented for a 6-year period from 2021-22 to 2026-27 and aims to support the creation of a global food manufacturing champions across the country. The objective is, number one, it will support food manufacturing organizations having minimum number of sales. So there will be a benchmark set by the government. Companies selling over that benchmark will be given help by the government. Second, it will help Indian brands of food products in the international market with an outlay of 10,900 crore rupees. Third, it will increase employment opportunities also by bringing jobs to over 2.5 lakh people in the next 6 years. And the scheme will ensure that there are good prices given to farm produce and the farmers have a better income. There are two main components of this scheme. The first is to incentivize the manufacturing of 4 food product segments. Which 4? Number 1, marine products. Second, mozzarella cheese. Third, processed fruits and vegetables. And fourth, ready to cook or ready to eat foods. So the first component focuses on manufacturing. The second component, on the other hand, focuses on improved branding and marketing abroad so that there is more demand for Indian products from outside the country. The entities will receive grants from the government for branding, for shelf life renting, and for marketing as well. Shelf space renting means, for example, if you are a new company, you have just produced new potato chips, you want to sell them at Big Bazaar or D-Mart or any other general store. When you are a new product and you go to Big Bazaar, they will charge you money. That is, if you want to sell our products from our shelf, you have to give us money, because otherwise we will use our shelf space to sell Lays or Uncle Chips that will sell off much faster. So for introducing new product, you need to buy shelf space from supermarkets so that they see that your product is actually selling. The next article that we have talks about the recent request by the Pakistan Hindu Council to the government of India to allow the pilgrims of the two nations to travel by air. Many experts believe that India-Pakistan relations are at their worst that they have ever been during any peacetime era. There has not been any political dialogue between the two nations for over 5 years now, and due to COVID-19, the cross-border movement has almost been sealed for about 2 years. The only exception to this is the travel to Kartarpur corridor that has been opened up since 2019. Kartarpur corridor, as you would know, is a small passage allowing the Indian pilgrims, mainly from Punjab side of India, to travel to Pakistan without any visa by road, visit the Kartarpur shrine, and then come back. However, both the nations have many religious shrines that are important for people of each other's nations. That is why in 1974 there was a religious exchange protocol signed under which the two sides will allow the pilgrims of each other's nations to visit their nation without any hassles, and they will be given visa pretty easily. As I said, for Sikh pilgrims, the route is pretty simple from Indian Punjab to Pakistani Punjab if they have to visit the Kartarpur shrine. But if you have to travel to other shrines in Pakistan, such as the Hinglaj Mata Mandir in Baluchistan area, or the Paramhans Mandir in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, or the Ajmer Sharif Dargah in Rajasthan, for the Pakistani citizens to come here is not that easy. And the author here makes a point that it is time that we improve at least people to people initiative so that the two sides can improve their relationship, if not come back to normal. While government to government initiative would be a big step and it is still far away, we can at least try to make sure that the people from the two countries interact with each other. That may help in normalizing the situation in the long run. As our late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee rightly said, we can choose our friends, but we cannot choose our neighbors. So we can do whatever we want, but the neighbors of India will remain the same, that is China and Pakistan. And rather than having animosity with them, it is in the best interest of both the nations if the situation starts to normalize by any means possible. So the article is based on this proposal given by Pakistan Hindu Council. This council has already signed a memorandum of understanding with Pakistan International Airlines, that is the government and airlines of Pakistan, to facilitate faith-based tour groups under which charter flights from PIA from Karachi and Lahore will be allowed to fly directly to Indian cities next week, and they want vice versa Indian flights also to come to those cities in Pakistan which have these religious shrines. However, the government of India has not responded to that request till now. Now, in the past also, these religious tours have taken place. Before any such tour is finalized, the pilgrim groups from both the sides are vetted properly and only then they are allowed to travel. So far, there has not been any harm to national interest by these moves of allowing the people to visit each other's shrines at least. If you look carefully, the governments on the two sides over the past couple of years have taken some minor steps to improve the situation. For example, a LOC ceasefire agreement was announced in February. Decision was also taken to reopen the Kartarpur corridor in November, and the government of India also allowed India and Pakistan match to go ahead in the recently concluded T20 World Cup and other sporting events as well. Thus, the article says that allowing such pilgrims tour will be another step in the right direction to normalize the situation in the coming months or weeks. Now, as you saw, the article makes mention of the 1974 religious protocol. Let's see what exactly is this and what shrines are covered under this. This protocol is called the Protocol on Visits to Religious Shrines in 1974 to facilitate Indian and Pakistani nationals to visit certain religious shrines in each other's nations. So far, a total of 15 shrines are covered under it. 10 from Pakistan and 5 from India. From Pakistan, it includes Gurudwara Shri Nankana Sahib of Rawalpindi, Gurudwara Shri Panja Sahib Rawalpindi, Samadhi of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, Gurudwara Shri Dera Sahib, Gurudwara Janam Sthan, Gurudwara Diwan Khana, Gurudwara Shahid Ganj, etc. From India's side, there are 5 sites that are included here. Hazrat Moinuddin Chishti, Ajmer, Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia in Delhi, Hazrat Amir Khusro again in Delhi, Hazrat Mujaddid Alf Sani in Punjab, and Hazrat Khwaja Alauddin Ali Ahmad Sabir in Kalyan Sharif. Under these agreements, pilgrims can only travel in groups and no individual travel is allowed. The number of groups are also fixed by respective governments each year. The pilgrims are given visitors visa freely by each other's government. However, despite this protocol being in place, it has not been easy for the visitors from either side to visit these places because of the declining situation of bilateral relations between the two sides. The next article that we have talks about the center government's decision to take back its retrospective tax law and what should the government do in the future to improve its already battered image in the international scene. Now, this long story that you know about the retrospective tax in India, let me try and cut it short. There are two main companies that concern this law. First, Kane India, which is an energy company based out of UK, and there is Vodafone. In 2012, when India's finance minister was late Pranab Mukherjee, the government of India passed a law with retrospective effect, saying that the government of India can ask for capital gain tax even when such transaction happened before this law came into being, that is before 2012. And thus the government of India first demanded a huge sum of tax from Vodafone, and then they did the same with Kane India. In both these cases, the Indian government lost the case, and in both these cases, it led to the government of India facing severe criticism from across the world. So the story goes like this. In 2006, Kane India, which was a subsidiary of Kane UK, had made some changes to their structure of the company internally. The government of India said that by doing this, you're avoiding taxes, and we demand that you pay us a capital tax of 24,500 crore rupees. Kane India said, we will not pay it to you. Why? Because this is just an internal restructuring. We are not making any gains with that. When this matter was going on in the court, the government of India, without even waiting for the court to give the decision, starting from 2014, the government started selling the shares of Kane India without even their permission so that they can get money from Kane India. The government did not even wait for the court order to come. Now in 2020, the court order came, and the court order said that Kane India is right. They do not have to pay any tax. The government of India was wrong in forcibly selling the shares of Kane India, and the government must pay back the money. Now, when the government of India did not take any action, they were not returning the money, Kane India went to the International Court of Justice at The Hague, and the International Court of Justice said that the government of India must pay $1.2 billion to Kane India for the harassment that the government officials have caused the company. After this, Kane India went to many parts of the world, going on and filing cases to different courts. In fact, they have won multiple cases, including the one in Canada, allowing Kane India to take over properties of government of India wherever they are located outside India. Thus, recently, a property held by Air India was actually overtaken by Kane, saying that now we have won the court order and now we'll take over the government's properties. All this led to extremely bad name for the government of India and led to this phrase of tax terrorism being associated with the government of India. Realizing this, the government of India thought that we'll compromise with the company, and as a compromise, it has been agreed that Kane, the company, will drop all the cases against the government. The government, on the other hand, will process the paperwork and refund 7,900 crore rupees that they had taken from the share of Kane India. The government has asked the company to fulfill all the formalities so that dues can be given before the end of this financial year. But the international image that India was trying to project to attract more companies into India has been dented severely by this particular action. The problem here is not that the government takes high taxes or low taxes from any corporate. The problem is that the government's tax policy, whether it be corporate tax or income tax, should be predictable. Even if the government says that we will take 60%, 70% taxes from the company, that is not a problem. The problem is that you have to tell the company that this is the amount of tax that we will take from you, and you cannot now keep on changing it. Especially, you cannot change it with retrospective effect. Because when such companies make investments in a new country, they invest millions and billions of dollars in infrastructure, in jobs, in setting up their marketing and other teams. All of a sudden, if you tell the companies that now we'll take more tax from you because we want to, or we are changing the law from a back date, the companies obviously will not be able to handle that and they will have to take action. This is what happened with the government in this case as well. Thus, it's not about low tax or high tax, it's more about having a predictable tax policy which the government must undertake. Now, this compromise that the government has done came by a law that the government passed in the parliament called the Taxation Law Amendment in 2021. The bill aims to drop all the tax claims against those companies on deals which took place before May 2012. This was a time when Pranab Mukherjee as a finance minister had introduced this retrospective law. Government says that before this date, whatever deals have been done, we are not asking for any tax from any of those deals. As we discussed, it all started with Vodafone. So the issue of Vodafone in India was, if you know, in India, there was actually a company called Hutchison SR and not Vodafone. This Hutchison SR company in turn was owned by a small company in Cayman Island. Now this Cayman Island based company was nothing but a shell company. Now what happened was Vodafone Group in 2007 bought the Cayman Island company. And because Cayman Island company owned Hutchison SR, means Vodafone Group indirectly actually bought Hutchison SR, and thus Vodafone India was launched. Now the Indian Income Tax Authority said that you have to pay taxes because you have bought an Indian company, you have made certain gain. Vodafone Group said that we have not bought any Indian company. We have just bought a company that is situated in Cayman Islands. When we opened up their box, when we opened up their lockers, we saw, oh, they have papers of Hutchison SR also. Means, okay, we will own Hutchison SR as well. But we have only bought Cayman Island company. We have no connection with India. So why would we pay any tax in India? So the Indian government raised a demand that you have to pay us taxes. Vodafone went to Indian Supreme Court and Indian Supreme Court ruled in favor of Vodafone that they don't have to pay any tax. Because the government was very angry, in 2012 they passed this retrospective law that we are changing the law itself and now you must pay its taxes. However, with Vodafone also they went to international courts and they eventually won the case and nothing came in the hands of the Indian authorities. Retrospective taxation simply means a rule imposing tax on certain products and services which have already taken place. For example, if you bought a chocolate 2 months back for rupees 100 and now the government says pay us 100 rupees more. Why? Because now we have increased the tax on that chocolate. You would say, I bought the chocolate 2 months back, I've already consumed it. The government would say, no, doesn't matter to us. Now we have increased the tax, so you have to pay us on the old chocolate also that you had bought. This is called retrospective tax, which obviously the companies will not like. The government, as per the new law, will refund all the retrospective tax that it had collected from these companies before 2012 incidents. The next article that we have talks about the public health model that is followed in the state of Tamil Nadu. Why is it extremely successful? And why is it wrong on the part of the union government to change this model right now? Now, as you know, there was a big debate in India which went on for a pretty long time about the OBC reservation in the postgraduate courses as per the NEET examination and whether the OBC reservation should be given in the All India quota or not. We have discussed this issue multiple times in the past and I'll just like to give you a brief idea again. When the NEET exam came into being, that is one exam through which you will have admissions to medical colleges across the country. The medical colleges in the state now had to give 50% of the seats to the central government. Means in half of those seats, students will be admitted by the central government counselling, that is called All India quota, without any regard for the state domicile. Remaining seats will be filled by the states depending upon their domicile. In this All India quota, earlier we did not have any OBC reservation, but from this year onwards, the Supreme Court has also allowed that we are allowing OBC reservation in the All India quota as well. Now, recently when the Supreme Court was hearing this matter, about students saying that this reservation should not be allowed because it is against merit, Supreme Court gave a very important judgment. Apart from allowing the OBC reservation, Supreme Court clarified that merit is not against reservation, and you have to understand how merit and reservation works in India. We will discuss about this particular aspect of merit versus reservation just a bit later on. Let's now focus on the Tamil Nadu model. Over the past 4 decades, Tamil Nadu has been following a pretty interesting policy. That is, when it comes to their postgraduate medical examinations, means people who want to pursue MD or MS, those who have already done their MBBS, when they are sitting for postgraduate entrance examinations, in that examination, there is reservation provided for in-service doctors. Means there are two types of students. One, who after MBBS would not have worked anywhere, who are directly applying for PG courses. Then there would be other types of doctors who after MBBS would have worked for some time, for 2, 3 or 4 years, and then they're applying for PG courses. The authors here say that Tamil Nadu policy gave reservation to those doctors who worked after MBBS and now are applying for PG medical courses. Not just this, reservation was also given to government doctors, especially who have already worked in the tertiary medical healthcare centers in the state government. This reservation of 50% was given in postgraduate courses and in super specialty medical seats, which gave great dividends to the government. For example, it led to increased availability of specialists in multiple disciplines such as gynecology, anesthesia, etc. And today, the public health sector in Tamil Nadu has 900 super specialists in different disciplines. These numbers of doctors can only be matched with a few European countries and is much higher as compared to the Indian average. Now, this policy, apart from increasing the number of doctors, also made sure that the students who are passing out from MBBS are actually encouraged to serve in rural areas. Because when they serve in rural areas for 3 years under primary health centers, then they become eligible for this reservation, and thus it helps the rural healthcare structure of the state, and the students on the other hand are also held through reservation. So what the state government of Tamil Nadu has done is they have redefined the concept of merit. Merit does not just mean getting higher marks in the examination. Merit also comes from your work ethics. Were you ready to serve in the rural areas or not? Were you ready to help those people who don't have healthcare facility or not? Were you ready to work harder or not? So the concept of merit cannot just be defined on who got more marks. The concept of merit also has to take into consideration your work ethics, your sincerity towards your job, and whether or not you take your profession seriously. This is how the Tamil Nadu government had been given reservation in postgraduate and super specialty medical seats for the doctors. As a result of this policy, the state primary healthcare centers and government hospitals in Tamil Nadu have never had shortage of doctors, and people also got better healthcare facilities. Not just this, the government in fact also had a bond with these government doctors. That is, because they got reservation benefits, they had to sign a bond with the government. That is, after their postgraduate or super specialty courses, they will only serve in the government till their retirement. This prevents brain drain. So if you are taking help of this reservation, you can only serve in the government hospitals and you cannot go to private sector or you cannot go abroad. That means that there will always be enough doctors at government hospitals for those people who can't afford their health checkup to be done by private doctors in private establishments. One other great benefit from this is that if you have realized, India has become the hub of medical tourism. In India also, it is cities such as Chennai and other cities of Tamil Nadu where we see a lot of foreigners coming in, especially to get their medical treatment at an affordable cost. All this is because of this particular policy of the state government in the past 4 decades. However, now the union government is trying to change this. The authors say that after introduction of the NEET and regulation by Medical Council of India, this admission policy has changed. The weightage for government doctors who serve in the rural areas has been reduced, and the Medical Council of India policy says that only 50% of seats in the PG diploma courses can be given to in-service doctors, and no reservation will be given in PG degree courses to these service doctors, which is a change from the existing policy of Tamil Nadu. In fact, recently when the state of Tamil Nadu was fighting against this in the Madras High Court, the union government opposed this in-service reservation and in turn has endangered the healthcare delivery system in the rural areas in the state of Tamil Nadu especially. The authors say that the government has to understand that you can't compare those living in the rural areas with those living in the urban areas. If there's an aspirant living in the rural areas, they may not have the same facilities during their preparation stage as compared to those living in the urban areas. The urban aspirants might have access to better coaching institutes, better teachers, better facilities, but the people working in the rural areas would not have. So at least allow them a chance to make up for this gap by serving in the rural areas so that they can also get benefit of reservation rather than only asking them to score higher in a written examination. The union government also knows that there is always a lack of doctors in the rural areas. The union government is trying to make it compulsory to have rural service after your MBBS, or the government is also trying to make sure that Ayush doctors are given a short term course so that they can be treated as physicians in rural areas. But in reality, the model that has been successful in Tamil Nadu, the union government is ignoring that. Thankfully, the Madras High Court has asked the union government to reintroduce reservation for service doctors at least in super specialty courses, if not in PG degree courses. It remains to be seen how and when exactly is this recommendation of the Madras High Court implemented by the central government. Now, as I said earlier, the Supreme Court judgment that came up just a few days back about allowing OBC reservation in the All India quota is very interesting, not just because of the medical admissions, but also because it gives an insight into the question of reservation and the long-standing debate of merit versus reservation. The Supreme Court judge bench, which had Justice Chandrachud, said that any open competitive examinations do ensure that you have equality of opportunity to participate in this examination. But this equality of opportunity is not enough. When you have Article 15 that says equality of opportunity shall be provided, this is not just in ensuring that you can write the examination. Because before the examination also throughout your life, people face widespread inequalities, such as availability of better educational facilities, coaching institutes, or not. Thus, while judging a candidate, you have to judge on a combination of things, such as the family, the community linkages, the skill work that the person has actually acquired over the years. Those all together would be called as merit. You cannot just say that a person's marks in an examination are merit. How hard does a person work? Is a person willing to go the extra mile? Is a person willing to go to the rural areas when others are not? All these comprise merit. The judge said to ask people from the villages to compete with those in the cities is like asking a man on a bicycle to compete with other on a motorcycle, which is absurd in itself. The judges also said that Article 15 subsection 4 and subsection 5 are not contrary to Article 15 subsection 1. For example, Article 15(1) says there is prohibition on discrimination on the grounds of religion, sex, or place of birth. While Article 15 subsection 4 allows the state to make special arrangements for promotion of the interest and welfare of socially and educationally backward classes. Similarly, for OBCs, this provision is given in Article 15 subsection 5. The court says that these subsections 4 and 5 are not in violation of subsection 1. Again, all this analysis lies on the fact that the definition of merit is not just marks based. It is all got to do with the state's responsibility to take affirmative action, which means that the state has a special responsibility towards those classes of citizens who have not got equal rights in the past to compete against those who have got better rights against them. The next article that we have talks about the racial profiling of Chakmas and Hajongs in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. Now, before I go ahead, there is a small concern I would like to address here. Whenever we discuss an article from pages 15 or 16 of the Hindu newspaper, I see comments saying that my Hindu newspaper had only 14 pages, whereas 15 and 16. So what we do is when we are making this article, we use a PDF version of the Hindu newspaper. So if you take the PDF version of the Hindu newspaper, you will see these articles. Also, if you don't see them and you get a physical copy of the Hindu newspaper, see there is a called Text and Context. It's a 2-page magazine inside the paper In this, you will get these pages, mainly 15 and 16. So either you can get the PDF version of the Hindu newspaper to get these last 2 pages of articles. If not, look for these middle pages, that is text and context within the Hindu newspaper. Now, this issue of Chakmas and Hajongs has been discussed in the CNA earlier as well. But let's see what the current update on this issue is. There has been a history in the northeast states of India of multiple conflicts between the indigenous tribes that live in those areas and people who have come in from outside. We have seen this in Assam, we have seen this in Meghalaya, we have seen this in Tripura, Manipur, and almost every such state. This issue of Chakmas and Hajongs is mainly focused in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. It started when in December 2021, the state government conducted a special census only for these communities, which led to a lot of fear in these communities that maybe the government is thinking of taking some action against us. Now, while most of these people reside in Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram and Tripura also have some population of the Buddhist Chakmas, while the Hindu Hajongs also inhabit in the state of Meghalaya and Assam. Now, the question is, how did they come to Arunachal Pradesh? They came to Arunachal Pradesh when they were displaced from East Pakistan, that is today's Bangladesh, when a new dam was built on the Karnafuli River, that is the Kaptai Dam. When this dam was being built, most of them were displaced and their lands were being taken away. They were not compensated and they had to come into India. Anyways, they were not Muslims, they did not speak the Bengali language, so most of them faced discrimination in East Pakistan anyway, and they were running for their life, so most of them entered India to Arunachal Pradesh. In 1960s, they sought asylum and the government of India settled them in the relief camps in south and southeast part of Arunachal Pradesh from 1964 to 1969. Today, most of them are concentrated in the Changlang district of the state of Arunachal Pradesh. Now, the Chakma organizations mainly are concerned with the new census that has just taken place in December. They say that it is a part of racial profiling and it is a violation of Article 14, which says that the state must treat everyone equally under law. This is also a violation of Article 1 of International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Why is it that the census was conducted only on these 2 communities and not everyone? These organizations even wrote a letter to Prime Minister, after which this census plan was dropped. The government, on the other hand, says that this is odd because this is not the first time that we have done this census. Similar census exercise was done in 2010 and 2015 as well. Now, there are various views given in this issue. The state of Arunachal Pradesh says that the center government never consulted them before settling down these people in our state in the 1960s. Why should we carry this burden? Why should we share our resources with anyone else from outside? Why should we share our jobs with anyone else? These communities, as a result, have faced hate crimes, police atrocities, denial of rights, even when they have been living in India for such a long time. In 1996, the Supreme Court intervened and said that no one should evict or expel the Chakma Hajongs, and the center and the state governments must complete the process to give them their citizenship. As per the 2011 census, government says that there are about 47,471 Chakmas and Hajongs in the state. But the Chakma organization says that no, there are about 65,000 Chakmas in India today. Of them, over 60,500 have been given citizenship by birth, because over 60,500 of them were actually born in India. So they are second generation Chakmas mainly that are in India. However, 4,500 migrants who actually came to India from East Pakistan have still not been given citizenship because they don't qualify under the citizenship by birth law. This is what they have been fighting for, that even the Supreme Court has said that we should be given citizenship. Then why is it that the government is still delaying it? Those who have taken birth in India have got it, but others have not. And even those who have actually been given citizenship, not all of them have been given the voter ID or right to vote, which is also a big concern for this community. Now, there are some other details that you need to understand. You might argue that after the passing of the Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019, they should be covered under the citizenship of India, right? But that is not the case. Why? Because if you look at the law carefully, the Citizenship Amendment Act did not apply to Arunachal Pradesh. It was one of the states that were exempted from this law since they had inner line permit law. making it mandatory to take the permit before entering the state. The Chakmas and Hajongs, on the other hand, say that they have already been in Arunachal Pradesh always, so they don't require this ILP. But despite all this, they are still struggling for their rights, such as the right to become voters in India. Another example of this discrimination came out in April 2020. In April 2020, the state government of Arunachal Pradesh announced an economic package for vulnerable sections for these difficult times of COVID-19. They said that 5 kg rice per person and 1 kg of pulses per person will be given to people under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Ann Yojana. However, a few days later, the state issued a notification saying that any tea estate or commercial establishments or individuals in the Diyun Circle, Changlang district have to purchase these items from the market and they will not get it free of cost. They will have to purchase it at a rate of 27 rupees per kg for wholesale selling and 29 rupees per kg for retail selling. This was mainly to target the Chakmas and Hajongs since they are the ones who live in the Diyun circle of Arunachal Pradesh. Most of them don't even have their ration cards since they allege that the state government illegally captured their ration cards in 1991, and since then they have been forced to buy ration from open market because to get ration from public distribution system they need to show their ration card which the government is not giving to them. This is a very serious concern since denial of food is a violation of right to life under Article 21, and the Supreme Court in 1996 had said that the state of Arunachal Pradesh shall ensure that life and personal liberty of each and every Chakma residing in the state is guaranteed. Now again, the problem is that despite multiple judgments from the court and directions from the government, these have not been implemented on the ground, and these communities have no other option but to go and visit the court again and again to get their right, what is deservedly theirs own. These were the articles we wanted to discuss from the Hindu newspaper today. Now a couple of practice questions. Number 1. Food processing industry is still at a nascent stage in the country. Suggest ways to make India a world leader in food processing industry. Second, improved people-to-people contact is the way forward towards achieving cordial India-Pakistan relations in the long run. Comment. Both these questions have to be answered within 250 words each. Thank you so much for watching the video.